Hello, I'm here to put forward my evidence that ancient European cave art is actually maps. What you're looking at here is a lion from Chauvet cave next to a limestone ridge that's found about 20 miles down the Ardèche River from the cave site. And directly above Chauvet, we have these hills that look suspiciously like the horse panel. And these coincidences are not just at Chauvet. Look at these river bends that are found close to Peshmel that's famous for its spotted horses. And it seems to work for the Venus figurines as well. This is the famous Willendorf Venus, and her contours match the bends in the river. I've done an entire separate video on this phenomena with the Venuses. I believe that for thousands of years during the last ice age, human beings were navigating the landscape by breaking down large chunks of it into visually recognisable shapes, mainly animals and curvy women. And not only did this allow them to visualise the landscape, it allowed them to verbalise it as well. In this video, I'm going to be covering the main panels at Chauvet Cave. I'm going to keep it short because there's a lot more caves to get through. This is the famous lion panel at Chauvet Cave, and at 36,000 years old is one of the oldest pieces of artwork in the world. Like most cave art, it features a dramatic procession of animals, of many different species, all jumbled together and superimposed on top of each other, and yet with spacing that suggests it's quite deliberate and part of the composition itself. It's not writing, but it does appear to hold information, and I think it's a message that we might be able to understand by understanding the landscape surrounding the cave itself. Now, it's long since been known by experts that the most decorated caves are in the most dramatic landscapes, and nowhere is that more true than Chauvet Cave. As you can see here, it sits within the high cliffs of the Ardèche Gorge, which forms a kind of cul-de-sac around the south bank of the river. It's really very distinctive. And this island, formed by the cut-off river meander, is actually connected to the south bank by the Point d'Arc. And this was formed long before the Ice Age, when the river cut its way through the rock and the old course got abandoned. Seems as this location is so distinct, if it exists within the artwork, it should be quite easy to spot. Well, as it happens, there is a piece of art in Chauvet that corresponds very well, and it's in the centre of the chamber where the lion panel's located. If you look at this 3D rendition, you can see there's a spike of rock hanging down with a very strange drawing on it. It's a half woman, half bison Venus figurine, and if I compare it side by side to the entrance of Chauvet, you can see how similar she is to the river island. And as this is the side you see of the bison woman when you enter the chamber, it suggests that this is the angle she's supposed to be viewed from. So here she is close up, and if I compare it to the island, you can see how close the match-up is. I can superimpose one over the other, and then something crazy happens, because her leg now falls over the Point d'Arc. And I think her placement on this spike of rock is to convey information as to how she can be found in the landscape. They wanted this to be understood. So now we know where we stood in the landscape, we can start to match up some of the other pictures. And I'm just going to skip to these three lions here, which I think might form the cliffs of Chauvet itself, although I'm a bit less confident with these side-on ones, but I thought I'd include it anyway. Now, the rest of the lion panel is very complicated, and I've only got parts of it mapped so far, but I do believe the whole thing represents the Ardèche Gorge. Although some parts have been hard to figure out, others have stood out so well that it just can't be a coincidence. Take these lions at the start of the panel, for instance. They are very deliberately arranged, and the look of each lion is quite specific. And it turns out they match up with a very distinctive location about 20 miles down the Ardèche River. You can see this very distinct formation of limestone ridges. If I compare that ridge to the lion panel, it's an almost perfect fit. Even the minor details, like the nostril on this lion, seem to align perfectly. And given the enormity of this ridge, it was definitely there in the Ice Age. There's a correlation with the rest of the junction too, with the lion next to it also being very clear, and the whole thing has a general resemblance. Now the rest of the lion panel is quite complicated, and it seems that in most areas it's just parts of the animals that match the landscape and not the whole thing. Because this panel's so complicated, I'm going to skip over most of it for now and stick with the parts that I'm more confident with. But I will just cover this central alcove here, as I believe it might represent the Pointe d'Arc again, with the alcove fitting over it something like this and the horse representing the river flowing beneath it. But as I'm a little less confident on this panel, I'm going to take you to the horse panel now. This is the horse panel. It's equally as long and as impressive as the lion panel. The centrepiece and one of the most iconic images in Chauvet Cave are these 4 horses. The panel can be found closer to the centre of the cave than the lion panel. These horses' heads are generally agreed to be the centrepiece, and certainly they draw our eyes just as they would have done in the Ice Age. And I think the place to look for this panel is directly above Chauvet itself at these hills. I think especially these 3 hills at the bottom stand out as having a strong resemblance. And an overlay reveals just how close they are in shape and dimension and relation to each other. Even the necks go down the cliff into that valley, and that matches the contours of the cave wall. There is some differences if you notice that the muzzles on the horses here are actually bunched together in the hills. I think they separated them out just for aesthetic purposes, and they do seem to have a little bit of flexibility like that. Beneath the horses and slightly intersecting them are these 2 fighting rhino that are unique in cave art. But what have rhino got to do with horses? Let's look back at Google Earth and pay more attention to those river bends. Both the legs of the rhino and the contour of the river bends form the same distinct shape. Again, on its own, not worth much, but together it's starting to paint a real picture. Here they are again, and you can see they actually cover quite a significant distance. Below the rhino, we have this little guy who's quite easy to miss. I think he's a water buffalo, but he fits in the landscape right here. It seems nothing went unnoticed to these people. So, is it just more than coincidence? There seems to be a striking number of similarities, even in this one little area. We've got the horses, the aurochs, I think the aurochs go there. And we've got the bison woman herself who fits there. I think the lions go around here and some of the other pictures that I've not done yet. The rest of the horse panel, like the lion panel, lines up in parts and is quite difficult to see in others. But I do believe that just like the lion panel, it also represents the Ardèche River. Why have they covered the same subject twice? I've no idea. But this bear skull also seems to play a part. It's exactly how it was left 20,000+ years ago when the entrance of Chauvet caved in. And you can see it's been very carefully placed with its teeth overhanging the edge of the boulder. Just as we have the bison woman in front of the lion panel, almost representing a 3D object, this bear skull also fits over the Point d'Arc and appears to be playing the same role. I'm going to end this video here because I want to keep it really short, and I decided to do each cave and subject as a separate video. I will be uploading more videos, but I can't quite give a schedule for that because I'm so busy through the day. I'm having to do this in my spare time. But the really great thing is, you don't even have to wait for me to do it. You can start exploring the subject yourselves. It's really easy. They clearly meant this subject to be understood. It's not actually cryptic. Okay, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and a big thank you to Don's Maps and the Wendell Collection.